Yeah, g'day everyone, and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey here for our grand final preview and best bet show. It'll be the final preview show of 2024. It has been another awesome year with the TryPod. For those that have forgotten or don't know who I am, my name's Dane from Clarkey's Rugby League column, and Winnie, the man above me, is the man who has won on the NRL 9 years straight with his bets, mate. Every single bet tracked, and he's been holding down the fort whilst I've been on a holiday, mate. How have you been?
Yeah, it's great to have you back, mate. I can't wait to get into this all with you. I'm glad you've had an awesome year. I've got to admit that I've had a tough season on best bets, 56 and 60. I don't have 5 to share tonight, so I will finish under 50% on best bets. I'm also not going to advise 13 units on the last best bet, so I know now it won't be a profitable year on my singles plays, and I'm sorry to say that's for the first time in 10 years. On a positive note, we've done really well in our big game previews. Go back to the grand final last year, every Origin last year and this year since you and I have joined forces. We are 13 out of 14 picking the winners in those Origins and grand finals with 9 and 2 on best bets in finals games the last 2 years, over 24 units on same game multis this season, over 20 same game multis last year as well. And then my co-host has also picked up a bit of the slack with his punting tracked plays, up over 14 units. Congratulations to you, Clarkey. Can't wait to hear your play for tonight. Nicole's been well ahead, and his returns from tips shared in his weekly contributed clip as well, including 34-1 last week. He had Munster last try for the Storm game. But tonight, mate, we've got a match of the highest quality and seemingly the finest margins to break down. Shout out to Padonis, gave us in the Extravaganza pod this very Quinella, and that was a triple up price for Storm versus Panthers. I'm going to break protocol and delay my best bet and give it out after I've talked about how I see it unfolding. But if you can guess what my best bet might be, or what you just want to share what your favorite play is in the comments, please do. Welcome in everybody who's tuning in live. As always, we appreciate you.
100% appreciate the live viewers from Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Ryan and Colt there in the house. They're always in the house, and they're apologising for last week. Boys, no bad blood there. I still love it.
Not good enough, guys. Come on. Now, it's not as easy as it looks, is it? These are some of the best blokes that follow us, and it was the same game with Grant to score and Roosters to cover, and neither happened. So at least nobody feels like they let anyone down, other than a little hit to the Clarkey's collect units.
That's right, mate. We're playing with the house money, and when we're playing with the house money, we like to take a few little dares on every now and then. In line with you as well, mate, I will have Clarkey's collect later in the show. What I want to do is break it all down from a few different angles to let everyone know how I'm seeing the grand final, and I think it all kind of ties together nicely toward the end. So we'll jump into all of that in just a moment, but before we do so, as always, let us hear from the CEO of Top Sport. It's Mr. Tristan Merlihan.
That video, of course, I didn't upload it in time. Speaking of the house, that video is processing. Can I do a sidebar? I wanted to talk really quickly about the 2020 grand final. We can do that now, and then we'll throw to Tristan, because that was the last time these two teams met. And I just thought it would be interesting for people to hear and remember what the best bets were 4 years ago. And it's pretty funny, actually. We really wrestled with this one. It was basically a pick'em grand final. The Storm were slight favourites in 2020. If people can remember, the Storm were the big dogs then. They were the ones that had been in several grand finals. They were the ones that had several more big game experienced players. Penrith was the upstart, the hot team for the year. So Melbourne was like a slight favourite, 1.5 point favourite. We got a best bet of Panthers plus half a try. And we also took another best bet. I believe it was either team 1-10. If you don't recall, Melbourne was up 20-0 at halftime, and after a Pappenhausen 60-metre try, 26-0 in that game. But we swept our best bets because Penrith's, the Melbourne's 4-try lead was actually pulled all the way to 26-20, which was 4 tries each, thanks to Cleary's try with 60 seconds to go. So we covered the try handicap, and we got the either 1-10, and Penrith actually had the final 3 tackles, I want to say, of that game against 11 men because a couple were in the sin bin. Just another fun fact about that game. So, knowing what we know now about what Penrith did last year, I mean, that would have been an even crazier finish. Some other fun facts from that game, Clarkey. Not sure if you had these. Apologies if you were going to share these, but 7 men remain from that grand final side that lost for the Panthers. Melbourne just have 3 of the same players that saluted on the day. Both hookers for this game weren't there because they were behind some all-time hookers. Kenny was on an extended bench behind Coruscant. Harry Grant couldn't even make the Storm side. In fact, he was loaned out to the Tigers because he was behind Cameron and Brandon Smith. You look back at that Melbourne team, how's this for an interchange bench? Tino, Brandon Smith, Dale Finucane, rep player at the time, and Nico Hines. So none of those guys could start for Melbourne. It tells you a thing or two about how good that Melbourne side was. And I've got another grand final story to share, but I'll share that at the end. Have you got anything to add on to the 2020 GF, Clarkey, before we do feed in Tristan's insights?
Yeah, just quickly, I think for me, what makes this grand final so interesting is, when we look at this Panthers dynasty, in my mind, it started on the 2020 grand final night. Yes, they were fantastic through the 2020 season and unstoppable, it could be said. But that loss to the Storm really ignited something in them. And we can't deny it. 3 premierships in a row from that point is a dynasty in sport. It's hard enough to win 1, let alone 3 in a row. Now we find them in their 5th consecutive grand final, and they haven't met the Storm since. And so whilst it can be argued this Panthers side from 2021 to 2023 has seen and done it all, there's one thing they haven't done, and that's get revenge on the team that set them up for this dynasty way back in 2020. And I just think that is a storyline that is so special in sports. And it once again proves, mate, we truly do follow the greatest game of all. I just love it.
You know what? You got to remember, though, Penrith beat Melbourne in the prelim the next year. I would argue that kind of was revenge because I think Melbourne would have won the grand final against Souths. It kind of was a grand final a week early. But, of course, they haven't met again in a grand final since. So I completely acknowledge your point. Harry Potter, have I said my best bet yet? Because of the special nature of the show, I'm saving it till I've outlined the way I see this game unfolding. And Ryan made a comment that was the most stacked Storm team list he's ever seen, the 2020 champions. I'm just going to throw it out there. Go and see for yourselves and let us know. I actually think the 2017 champions Storm was even stronger because that back then you had Billy Slater and you had Cooper Cronk in that team as well. But that's a debate for another day. Let's hear from Tristan.
G'day everyone, Tristan Merlehan here from Top Sport. Footy Colours Week in our office this week. I'm not a Patriots fan, but it was NFL Day today, and I went to a game with them once, and we needed to cheer them on, so I brought it out of retirement, the jersey. We obviously just finished the AFL Grand Final. There was, it was a pretty balanced betting game on game day, but we had a really strong position where we needed the Lions pre-match, so we're very happy with the outcome. Obviously, being a Queenslander was helpful as well, and now we roll into the end of the big NRL game, and we get to a really, really close decider. The betting's been very hard to split. We've put the Storm up 185 favourites, Penrith 197. There hasn't been too much movement. Obviously, the team's dropped and all the players expected to be named have been. Nathan Cleary has been named, and I think that was always the expectation. Whether he's 100% is probably the question mark, and that's probably why Melbourne have been installed as favourites just on the back of their impressive run as well over the last fortnight. So it's a crazy game with so many different opinions, and we've put our market up at basically market price. We haven't skewed it based on our futures. We've actually got a lose-lose situation going into this game, so we've just sort of set it where we think the money's going to sit. Everyone seems to have a different opinion on the game, and I think that's going to materialise a really strong betting game, one of our better turnover matches of the year, I would suggest, and we'll see. I don't see there being a big plunge one way or the other unless there's a player out, which I don't see happening. So I think there's just going to be strong support both ways, and it's going to be a really high quality betting game. There's going to be a lot of action as always in your markets like your Norm Smith, not your Norm Smith, your Clive Churchill, should I say, still in AFL mode here. But we've got the usual suspects up the top with Cleary and Hughes, both at the $4.80 favourite. Then Edwards and Munster just behind that with Grant and Yeo there as well. So again, that market's going to generate plenty of interest. And I think we're going to have a beauty. Hopefully you get a great rugby league season. Hopefully we get a great decider worthy of the season. And obviously if you're having a bet, make sure you do it responsibly. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much to Tristan for those exclusive insights as always. Rocking the Tom Brady jersey, was it, Winnie? 24 for...
Yeah, that's right. I felt like I lost respect for Tristan seeing him in a Patriots jersey, although now the Patriots finally aren't good, you probably can appreciate him wearing that. I think he said his Lions jerseys in the wash.
Yeah, I think, people that supported them back in the day when Brady was there was like people that jumped on the Golden State Warriors during their dynasty, classic Aussie bandwagon.
Hey, there's parallels to the Melbourne Storm too, and the success of, someone like Cam Smith, and we're going to get to, a lot of the numbers as well, and this being Bellamy's 10th grand final. You can say that they have made 10 grand finals. It gets a bit more hazy when you say how many the Melbourne have won, I suppose.
Yeah, because you have to take 2 off. So what have they won? 4 properly? 17, 20, and 12. Yeah, only 3. Yeah, okay. Now that is interesting there. Look, I just want to take a quick second here, Winnie, and just give a huge thanks to Tristan and Top Sport as a whole for their continued support of this show. They've been with us pretty much ever since I've been with the show. Every time I've asked for a custom market in Origins, big games, they've got back to me. The punt party that was hosted at Magic Round was super fun. Hosting us in his corporate box, like a very hospitable person there, Tristan. And we are really, really happy with our partnership with Top Sports. So I just wanted to say thank you very much to another great year with Tristan. Alrighty, mate. Team changes times. Now, usually we have a fair bit to talk about when it comes to team changes when we preview in this format, because we're usually doing Origin and other games like that. But really simple one, mate. For the Storm, Nelson Asafa-Solomona is out suspended. So Tui Kamakamitha comes into the starting side. Lazarus Varlepu joins the Storm bench. And for the Panthers, Scott Sorensen is named in the reserves again and will make a bid to return. What's reported at the moment is if he does overcome that hamstring injury, he will replace Matt Eisenhuth. The Panthers want to keep Brad Schneider on the bench as cover just in case anything happens to Nathan Cleary there. Do you have any strong thoughts on the team lists there?
As expected, really. Sorensen, even if he is right, they probably would keep him in reserves and keep Melbourne guessing a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of like a little bit of mind games from Ivan Cleary there, which is interesting. You'd think Sorensen would be right because he was in the reserves all the way for finals week 1. So that's now been 3-4 weeks by the time this game kicks off. It would need to be like a grade 2 or above strain to keep him out. So my early tip is I think we will see Scotty Sorensen return, which will be huge for the Panthers in my opinion because it gives them another quality international forward where the Storm might be lacking with Nelson's suspension. Let's go keys to victory, mate. We usually do the keys to victory for State of Origin. Let's start with the Melbourne Storm as they're the minor premiers. We'll get to game-specific breakdowns in a moment. But just when you look at this Melbourne Storm team, what stands out to you as a key to victory or maybe keys to victory, something they really need to nail if they want to get the job done?
To me, there were 2 major aspects. And it's one of these things, if I tell you what's really important for Melbourne, that is also going to be important for Penrith to do as well or to stop. So I'll talk about the first, and that is for Melbourne to match the Panthers' middles. Can't win the game if they can't handle that. And a lot of this match will be played between the 20s. And you look at King, Kamakamitha, and Loiero, they're going to have to be up for the fight of their lives against Leota, Fish, Yo. And the experience that those players bring and just head-to-head, the advantage that those players have. So Melbourne's going to have to hunt in numbers, in defensively to hold their own, to limit territory to that Cleary and Luai, want to operate in. When Melbourne is working it out of their end, both sides have great outside backs to get the set started, but as Melbourne are working it out, Melbourne's going to utilise early shifts, try and spread Penrith out, and even search for a line break. Melbourne are the most dangerous team in the competition from long range. Not that I expect that Melbourne can pull the Panthers apart the way they do regular opposition, but still using that ability as a threat and an alternate avenue to make meters because the yardage battle will be so key, as it always is. But vice versa for Penrith, can they stay compact, shut down those Storm shifts? And then Penrith just wants to go toe-to-toe with the Storm in the middle, and the Panthers know they've got the superior enforcers on the front line. Not to mention you're going to want to exploit the presence of or the absence of Nelson. And Penrith's got the props that are going to win more play the balls, make more meters. And Penrith, the masters of going set for set with you, sooner or later, they gain the upper hand. And in this match, or in any match, the first thing I'm looking at is which forwards are going to grab ascendancy. And so you have to say that's probably is advantage Panthers, but keeping them in check is key for Melbourne.
So my Storm key to victory, and I went to their last 3 games for this one, Winnie, and in 2 of those games, just not the Sharks game in finals week 1, they started with a level of ferocity and they ended with a solid halftime lead. And I do think that's something they'll need to implement here. And I do see similarities between that game plan and what happened in the 2020 grand final, where, as you said earlier, they went into halftime 20-0. Try and start so fast that you upset the Panthers' ability to fall in rhythm. Because once this Panthers side falls in rhythm, as we saw with the Sharks last round, you can be really good. You can be on your game. You can be doing enough, but eventually something's going to turn in their favor because they are just always there and always present. But if you do make them feel that pressure by the scoreboard or maybe via territory, and I mean, sort of attacking with your defense, really trying to hold them down in their line, you could pressure the Panthers to a point where they might throw a pass that they don't want to, or throw an offload that they typically wouldn't want to. And an example of that was Nathan Cleary's intercept in the 2020 grand final, taken by Vunivalu, I believe. That is where I think the Storm could have an advantage here. And I think if they can do that and start with a level of ferocity and upset the Panthers' rhythm, looking at their season, they probably have been more of a second half team. And that would put them in a position to win from there. Now, in their last 3 games, so Broncos, Roosters, Sharks, they've only conceded 3 tries in the second halves in those games. So it could even put them in a position where they can kind of defend their way to victory, which would be, pretty special against the Panthers. But that's my key to victory for the Storm, mate. Did you want me to kick it over to the Panthers?
Yeah, sure. And again, this really goes for both sides, but it's the other major aspect that I wanted to focus on, and that is fifth tackle options. And when I look at Melbourne, well, one part of your fifth tackle is, can you get some aerial contests? Because the Storm should be superior on both sides of the field, whether it's Coates against To'o or Warbrick against Taruva. And you know that Melbourne's going to try and search for some of those contests. But it goes beyond, can you sky for a try, which Warbrick and Coates are both very capable of doing. It's, could they get you a repeat set, either because it's a tough matchup in the air for those Panthers outside backs, and therefore does it create errors? Do they take the safe option when it's in goal? Beyond that too, when you do get a repeat set and it's a dropout, for example, having those outside backs that can go up and high point a ball can actually help you secure a ball for a short restart. But then, as well as the kicking game and the attacking kicks in this game, these are the best 2 teams in the comp at improvising and making things happen on the last tackle. And you know that these defenses are so hard to breach, and these are the best 2 defensive teams in the comp. Maybe Canterbury was top 2 up until the last couple of weeks, but the stats will now tell you these are the best 2 defenses as well. So running it on the last, when the fullback is behind the line, a winger may or may not be deep as well, can be your best opportunities for an opening in the game. And therefore, it's the decision-making of the halves, when and when not to chance your arm, because so many critical tries we're seeing throughout the final series and in big games are scored on the final play. Look no further than last week, really. The game's in the balance for Cronulla, for Penrith against Cronulla. It's 10-6. Penrith keeps it alive on last tackle. And the thing is, it's just hard enough defending these sides for a full set. But every defender has to be on high alert on that final tackle until the 6th tackle is made or the ball is secured off a kick. You need to be ready, because these teams can hurt you. And I'm saying it's a key for victory both sides, because whether it's Munster, Tues, Luai, Cleary, they are all fantastic players playing ad-lib footy off instincts. They can hurt you with a run, a pass, or a kick, like Nathan's sublime crossfield assist last week. In a game where I definitely anticipate high completion rates, not a lot of penalties, therefore maybe not many stoppages, and fatigue is going to be a massive factor. The team that can execute on fifth tackle when an opportunity presents, or the side that can stay uncompromised and survive a fifth tackle, could be the winner.
What I really love about your takes there, man, is actually the wingers. Now, this genuinely could be the biggest winger height discrepancy or mismatch we've ever seen in a grand final. Taruva and Toto are both really small for wingers, and Warbrick and Coates would be at the upper echelon of height for wingers. And then you look at some of Hughes' kicks this year that have been pinpoint accurate. Harry Grant's got a great kicking game. Munster has more of an unorthodox kicking game. We saw Cleary do that low kick across to Toto. That's something that Munster's able to produce as well. So I actually hadn't considered that, and I really love that. That's because I had my blinkers on. As soon as I saw that Nelson Asafa Solomona tackle last week, I stopped and said to the people I was watching the game with, he's gone from the grand final. I just knew it straight away with where the NRL is at the moment. And my mind immediately went to the Panthers and targeting the middle channel of the Storm relentlessly and through your kicking game. So if you can't get that momentum up the middle and they are really stifling and it's not working for you, we saw Nathan Cleary turn the game with his kicking game against the Sharks. So that's also a fallback option for them there. So against the Roosters, Christian Welch had 8 minutes. Kamakamitha played 22 and Alec McDonald played 29. Against the Sharks in finals week 1, Welch 19, Kamakamitha 24, McDonald 38. And then, of course, without Nelson Asafa Solomona, all of those bench middle forwards are going to have to rise in minutes. And that is when the fatigue starts to set in. And what you're also doing if you're attacking that middle third is you're zapping their energy to make momentum for players like Harry Grant, Munster, Hughes, and Pappenhausen. Now, the Storm do have literally, I would say, the best spine in the competition and one of the best of all time with those 4 superstars. But if you don't have momentum through your middle forwards, ultimately, it doesn't matter. It takes a really special play, which they are capable of. I'm not saying that can't happen, but it would take something really special from a Munster, something unorthodox. I also think when you look at the Storm, the only criticism I could make of this side this year is that they looked short of middle forward at times. They were probably one quality middle forward short, and I actually think they would agree. I think that's why they went out and chased Stefano Utuikamanu so hard. So, they finished first, so it's tough to criticize them in any way. But if I had to, Winnie, that was it. And the stats also support that. The Panthers have been averaging more post-contact meters throughout the season. So I think this is an area that the Panthers can exploit, Winnie. But what I also loved last week against the Sharkies, when Lyoto and Fisher-Harris came on for their second stint, they blew the game over. It was in the balance where the Panthers were winning the arm wrestle and that they were about to put them to the sword. And then as soon as those two came back on, and of course we'd be talking lesser experienced forwards here for the Storm, that's when the Panthers took that game over and ensured victory. So I don't know if I'm thinking a little bit too simply there, but I do think there's a huge opportunity for the Panthers to just really exploit that middle of the Storm. Do you see it in a similar way?
I mean, that stood out to both of us, that middle matchup, and that is the best 1-2 punch in the comp. Last year, you could have argued that Haas-Flegler was as good, and it was no surprise that Brisbane did get all the way to just about one hand on the premiership trophy. I came into this year not considering Melbourne as one of the major threats to the title. The biggest reason was I didn't believe in the middles, but I have to say that these players have stepped up. Matty Blanche in the comments says, Karma, chameleon, not a bad replacement. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks of that tune every time I see Tues' name. But you look at the fact these sides did meet. Okay, in the prelim last year, Panthers won easily, and the middles were exploited for Storm. The Storm couldn't go with Penrith or Brisbane in the earlier finals matchup. Melbourne's a different team this year, and the evidence is there in the two prior hookups between these sides this year. Now, you've got to go all the way back to round 1, but then more recently, it was only about 7 or 8 weeks ago, these sides met again in the match that Cleary was injured, and Melbourne Storm's forwards held their own both occasions, which gives me the belief that I know it's not the superior set of forwards, but that the big men can just mix it up with Penrith and do it in a different way. It's got to be, as I said, in a pack. It's got to be through line speed, being relentless, and being fitter and potentially faster than Penrith. What other comments? I mean, I saw, the same point made about from Ryan. I think it was that the Storm have got to survive the Fish Leota minutes. And Jamie made a great point as well. Don't forget about Eli Katoa in the aerial contest. And you and I know that very well too. Our same game multi we have between us against the Sharks. He was the only player we didn't get to score. And he caught about 4 different bombs a metre short of the line. And a couple of them offloaded them to teammates for tries. But just on the comments, keep them coming through, guys. I want you to tell us who you're picking, send them through, and the biggest reason why. So if you're picking Penrith, what's the number one factor, or vice versa? Alternatively, if you like the Storm, what's the reason that gets them home as we continue through our preview?
Perfectly said there, mate. Yeah, if everyone types that and gets that in the comment, we'll move on to our game preview now and talk games specifically, comparing the two sides, Winnie. So Sunday, 7:30 p.m. at Core Stadium. The line is set at -1.5 against the Melbourne Storm, and it has not moved since team list. Stage is set. We've broken down our keys to victory. We've talked about the team lists. Let's go more general here, mate. Break the game down for me itself. How do you see this 80 minutes playing out in the grand final?
Well, let's start with the team comparison. Who's got the better forward pack? We've established, and we both agree it's Penrith on the back of those three middles. The outside backs, let me know what you think. I've got it even. I know that Edwards is the better player over Pappenhausen, but I really think it's razor thin, and you've got to remember that Edwards is carrying a knee issue. I see both sides having an elite winger with Coates and To'o, and I think I'd take Warbrick over Chiruva, but I think Tungo is the best centre in this match. And then I look at, say, 6, 7, 9, because I already counted the fullbacks and the outside backs. I'm going to give slight edge to the Storm because I think the halves are that close, and then I'm going to give it to the edge to the captain and hooker, Harry Grant. I prefer Munster shade over Luai, but either on their day could get the upper hand. And then everyone is going to take Cleary over Hughes, understandably so. But this is Jerome Hughes' best season of his career, and this is Nathan Cleary, not 100%. So it is really close in my mind. What's your response to that, Clark? You kind of spine, outside backs, and forwards. Who has the better units?
Yeah, so I'd agree on all points there. The interesting thing for outside backs are, I think your consistent performers that we know what to expect from is the Nick Meaney and Isaac Tungo. They're at a level where, they're above most centres in the game. But the X factor for both sides is Jack Howarth and Paul Alamotti. These are two guys that, they can be up and down because they are very young in their career. One's a rookie, one's in his second full season. But they're also the X factor centres where I think they could rise to a super high level, and we just don't know they're capable of that yet. And then what makes me so excited about that potential is Howarth has had an awesome final series where the Kiwis want him, the Australia wants him, everyone wants him. And then Paul Alamotti's coming off 2 tries and was the second best player behind Cleary in finals week 3. Completely agree there. And I do agree with Ryan's point as well, where he says, I'm picking the Penrith Panthers based on a Cleary and perceived forward pack advantage. But I think you could argue the Storm's spine counters that evenly. So I agree with Ryan and yourself in regards to the spine.
In fact, I'll take it a step further. 13 starters. This is tough for you, but if you're looking at the team list, you can tell me if you disagree. But I would argue 8 Panthers would start for Melbourne. But if I look at the Storm starting lineup, I could only probably find 4 that I think would definitely start for Penrith. So I do think Penrith has the better players overall if you kind of go position by position. And then you get to the bench, and this is a good argument too. Who's got the stronger bench? Because on one hand, Penrith has to waste a spot. They're going to burn a spot just because they are worried about Cleary. Schneider's there, but Schneider, I know what Cogger did last year, but realistically, there's just not a position that's going to come on and win you the game, as opposed to Wishart is awesome utility factor, more than just halves cover. He's outside back cover and hooker cover, and an X factor that Wishart can actually come onto the field without a spine player needing to be replaced. So I feel like that's advantage Storm. But then if I look at the forwards that are on the bench for both sides, I've got Lindsay Smith, who could be a future Origin star. I've got Sorensen, and someone in the comments said that he's been training this week. So he's a strong possibility to join that Panthers bench. And when I look at the Storm forwards, because you're missing Nelson, it does test your depth. Valepu, vastly inexperienced player. Welsh, greatly experienced, but unfortunately past his prime. So the better forwards coming onto the field for Penrith. So I feel like that is about even as well. Do you see an advantage either way on the bench?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. So if you look at the bench forwards, I think you've got to say Penrith. Someone like Liam Henry and Lindsay Smith have shown this year they can play in the middle or an edge and still perform. Fun fact for Liam Henry, Winnie, he's a rookie, but he has the most tackles of any player in an individual game this year. And Liam Henry, when he got moved, Lindsay Smith, when he got moved to back row earlier this year for cover when someone got injured, I said, I don't like that. I would have put Henry there. He's not a back row. And he scored 5 minutes later off Cleary. So two versatile, awesome forwards there. We expect Scott Sorensen, who's a Kiwi international. But if not, someone like Matt Eisenhuth is more than serviceable for, 20 or so minutes that you'll get out of him. But the key difference, like you said, is in the utilities here, we have a player that is only there for cover. If neither of the halves get injured, you can't see how you interject Brad Schneider into this game. It's just too risky with his experience levels. Whereas Tyron Wishart is someone that, on form, I think I had him as the fourth best 5'8" at the moment. Now, obviously, players like Munster have been injured and stuff like that, but Wishart is someone that when we isolate and just look at the benches for both sides, he stands out as a player that can come on and completely shift the game. So that X factor in the favour of Storm could be massive. And it's probably something that I'm guilty of overlooking because I blink it in a little bit too much on the Asafa Solomona suspension. So really great pick up there, man.
I've got another advantage, but this one has to be in favour of Penrith, and that's goal kicking. Cleary, not only just the ice in his veins, but percentages as well, is the superior kicker to Nick Meaney. And in a low-scoring game, which I can tell you is what I envision, you know how valuable the ability to get the 2 points every time is. What about coaching? I got to tell you, as I said before, Bellier comes into his 10th grand final while Ivan's in his 5th in a row. And you'd say his 6th, wouldn't you? Ivan was the coach of the Warriors some 13 years ago. I've got it even between this. I really don't give a clear advantage to either. Do you?
Yeah, look, I think if I had to give my all-time GOAT for the coaches, I'd go Wayne Bennett. Craig Bellamy would be second. But if you ask me right now who is the best coach currently, then it'd have to be Ivan Cleary, just based on the fact, really, in the modern game, we've never seen a team make it to the grand final 5 times in a row. It's hard enough to make one, let alone 5 in a row. And what's also so impressive for Ivan Cleary, and you could also say this for Craig Bellamy, actually, these are both sides that regularly lose players. They regularly lose players to rival teams because the salary cap catches up to them, but they still find ways to perform. There was a time, for the Storm when a lot of their lineup was just kind of guys that were just fitting in. They'd be fringe first graders at any other system, but they were playing awesome for the Melbourne Storm. And then we saw them go to other systems. I'll go Tim Glasby, for example, who played Origin, never the same at the Knights. And then you look at the Panthers team the last 5 years of players they've lost. It's strong enough 13 that it could compete with any side in the NRL. So really impressive what these coaches are able to do, man. Really impressive.
And then I absolutely agree. Then I'll look at where are the other factors in this. Penrith's a Sydney team, don't have to travel, right? But I would say that's counteracted by the fact that Melbourne won a day earlier. An extra day, if you dedicate that to travel and commitments, then you've got the same amount of preparation. Big game experience, we've got to talk about that. Has to favour Penrith too. Only 4 of the Panthers' 17, I believe, weren't in the premiership winning side last year. And as I mentioned, in fact, 7 Panthers are playing their 5th straight grand final. Have you got any other factors we haven't mentioned just in terms of an edge to either side?
No, nothing too much for the edge, but I can run through some more general stats if you're interested in get your thoughts on that after. That. So these sides have versed twice this year. The Storm won 8-0 to open the season, and they won again in round 24 by 2 points in Penrith. In my mind, I think that benefits the Panthers slightly because they're able to go back and make those adjustments. And there's also the revenge factor built in from the 2020 grand final. But that is my opinion. That doesn't fall into the stats. The Storm averaged 5 more points per game this year in terms of scoring, whilst the Panthers concede 3 less. So very close there, as you would expect, Winnie. But my read there is actually the same as yours. I expected a lower scoring game. Now, you look at the points these two sides score, how they score points, rather, and the nature of how that occurs. From how I see it, generally they break sides down and they crack them or they make them fold. And then that wave of momentum allows all their superstars to just take over and get a flurry of points. But I don't see either side breaking here. And so whilst we can say, they both averaged so many points this year, I actually think the points could be harder to come by because the method at which they score isn't probably going to be available in this game. When I looked at the venue, I don't think it's very favourable to either side, but I would lean Panthers if I have to, just because they did play the preliminary final there, so there's a touch more familiarity. They also have won 11 of their last 13 at the ground. Where I'm going to say the Panthers will be a bit more prepared in this one is actually their preliminary final. I want to cast people's minds all the way back earlier this year when the Sharks played the Dragons, and they got into an arm wrestle with the Dragons and they just come out on top. And I said that actually has them really well prepped because they were going into a period where they versed the Storm, Roosters, and Panthers. They ended up beating the Roosters. Then they beat the Storm. They did lose badly to the Panthers. But that arm wrestle, getting into that dogfight and coming out over the top, actually really helped the Sharks at that time of the year. And when I look at the Storm's run to the final, they've just blown the Sharks and Roosters off the park. There wasn't really a competition. Whereas the Panthers, they kind of did get into an arm wrestle there with the Sharkies and come out on top. I think you could make that argument for the Storm in the first 40 minutes with the Sharks, but their second half was so poor that the Storm really just dominated them from there. So I do give a slight advantage there to the Panthers. Panthers have 39 grand final games experience in their side compared to the Storm's 12. So a big wide margin there towards the Panthers, you'd have to say. And when they did meet in 2020, just to note quickly, it probably would have been the opposite, if not even more. The Storm would have been the ones with all the grand final experience. Therefore, mate, I'll give you my final prediction now before I hand it back to you. I predict a tight contest, a lower scoring contest, and I'm going to say Panthers 1-12. I'm sure people started to get that vibe with how I was interjecting my opinion throughout the stats there. Panthers 1-12 in a low scoring match, mate. I'll hand it back to you for your thoughts on that.
Well, the way that you talk about how Penrith could be a little more battle-hardened, you know who gave Penrith their toughest game in the last month is, don't you?
It was the... Are you saying round 24?
I'll give you a clue. Their logo is on our screen right now.
I got you, mate. Yeah, look.
In all seriousness, Penrith had one eye on the finals, yes, but the Titans pushed Penrith for the full 80 minutes in round 27. Melbourne, whether they wanted a tough game or not, because Melbourne played full strength in round 27 too, but they played a totally dishevelled Brisbane side that had given it away already, and Melbourne blew them off the park. And yeah, Melbourne got a decent game up in Townsville, but only because Melbourne essentially sent the B team. So it depends how you read into it. You're talking about Penrith's been pushed a little harder and maybe haven't quite played their best, because these two sides have common opponents. They both played Cronulla, they both played the Roosters, and Melbourne won both games by a little bit more and were probably more convincing. Melbourne was down 6-0 to the Roosters and had a man in the bin and won by 30. Yes, Penrith did beat the Roosters by 20. I think it was 20, but there was a little more controversy in that game, was a little closer. And Melbourne beat Cronulla by 27. Penrith beat Cronulla again. I think it was 20, the final margin, but it's a 4-point game with under 20 to go. So it was a little closer. But who's at an advantage to? What I will tell you, and this is a very simplistic take, but it is important to me and how I foresee this match. Melbourne's playing better footy. We said this coming into the final series, that Melbourne was blowing teams away. Melbourne was unconvincing early in the year and just finding ways to win here or there. But Melbourne's been absolutely dominated later in the year. Penrith's been a little more patchy. Now, they didn't get Nathan Cleary until the finals. There's excuses for Penrith, and that's why I think, and it goes back to the fact that I think Penrith has a greater balance of better players. But so I think Penrith has the higher upside, the greater potential to be able to go up a gear. But there is something to be said for just a team that comes in better form. And it was the exact roles reversed 4 years ago, as you said. It was Melbourne with a lot more, experience. It was Penrith that was the side coming in with greater form. And you're suggesting Penrith that maybe that experience ultimately wins out. I am actually going to go the other way, and I'm picking the Melbourne Storm, and it is a tough one. I'm with you that it's a narrow margin. I think both these sides are so good for many reasons, but among one of them is the tight bond between players. We've seen what Penrith's had over what I would call this dynasty, but Melbourne as well. And I look at those key men, Pappy, Munster, Hughes. They're great mates. They actually do a pod together every Tuesday night, I believe, like you and I, mate. The difference is we didn't come up with 7 tries between us in a prelim. But I think that's a team that this season definitely appreciates the opportunity that's in front of them and is ready to win. And the differentiating factor between these two sides, the reason I will pick Melbourne to win the game, is the speed of the Melbourne Storm. I think chances are going to be few and far between. Both have superstars. Both sides have superstars with great instincts. But the man that touches the ball first after a play the ball and can diagnose a play is Harry Grant, who I think is the superior hooker in this game and is the best 9 in the competition at this point. And when Harry Grant picks it up, there's one marker, he can go himself. If there's space on the left, he can fire it to Munster. That's won almost everything you can win in the game. If it's on the right, you throw it to the hottest player in the competition. And out the back, you have Pappy, who, if not for some horrible injury luck, may be rated even higher in people's books in terms of the most electric ball carriers in the game. And everyone thinks Edwards is the better fullback, but Edwards is a tough character and is carrying this knee injury and maybe not showing how much it may be hampering him, where Pappy looks pretty good to me. He certainly did, scoring that double last week. So I understand the reasons why people will pick Penrith, why you're picking them, and several others in the comments. And it's not to me saying Penrith can't win, and I'm not going out and out saying a Storm are a best bet, because I predicted before this game it would be Pick'em. And I do have a lean to Storm for sure. But I'm going to say it's a 5th tackle try that wins this game, maybe 3 tries to 2. My prediction will be Melbourne 18 defeats Penrith 14. And my best bet, I'm going to bring up on the screen. You only got one game. You got to get a little bit more creative. So my best bet is a 3-leg same game multi. But essentially, you can think of it like either team 1 to 10, but it's actually perhaps a little bit better than that. I've got 3 legs, Penrith plus 12.5. I don't see this at the back-to-back premiers being blown at 13 plus. I've got Melbourne plus 10.5. And I've got under 63.5 points. And that you take those 3 legs on Sportsbet, it pays $1.80. So Penrith by 1 to 10 or Melbourne by 1 to 12, essentially, because I would love it either 1 to 12, but either team 1 to 12 was paying about $1.67. I will tell you as well, and I'll get your response to my same game. I'll throw it on the screen so you can digest it again, Clarkey, and others. Let us know in the comments. But the other bet I would have loved to play would have been under 7.5 tries, like I did in Panthers Sharks. But the total was just a point higher last week. Best price I could find, I think better, $1.72, shy of a best bet price. But again, I think it's very hard to envision either of these teams winning by a big margin. I think they're both so good that they're nearly impossible to beat by a big score. Under 63.5, I took just to enable me to pinch a couple extra points on the handicap. I'm willing to risk that there won't be 64 plus points in a game that's not a blowout. So it's not going to be 33-32 for me. These defenses are too good. It's going to be too tight of a game. I see, more like 3 tries plays 2. Or dare I say, golden point is a real possibility as well. What do you think of my same game multi-best bet?
Well, mate, great minds think alike. As you were speaking and explaining why you like the Storm, I was thinking, everything he's saying makes a great case, and I feel like I made a great case for the Panthers 1 to 12 as well. So I did go and check the either side 1 to 12 market, but as you said there, it is a little bit short of where we need it to be for a best bet. So I think tying in, a margin that seems unlikely these 2 points would hit, that'd be like 30 plus scored by both teams or an absolute blowout one way.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't see it happening. So I do love how you've combined that to get the best bet price. For me, and I don't want to, jinx it or put out any bad juju out there, so I will touch wood with both hands. It's almost like a free leg. Like I don't see 64 points in this game. I just don't. It's almost a free leg that would otherwise be a super short leg, but it gets us up to that best bet price. So I love it, mate. I think that's a really smart way to go about it. And why I'm also super excited now, man, is we've got Try Scorers and Clive Churchill medal predictions coming up in our next 2 segments. We're both picking a different team, so I assume we'll have different picks there, which is going to be absolutely exciting, mate. So let's jump forward there to Try Scorers. And when we talk Try Scorers, super fun market, but one man knows it better than both of us, and that is Nicole, the founder of Wiki. And we've got a clip of his top try scorer pick for the Big Dance.
Oh, great lead-in, mate. Sorry, I must not have told you. I'm saving that for the Thursday show. And I don't think I announced it, but you've given me the chance to announce it. So we're doing a 2-part preview. This is our standard Tuesday preview, but on Thursday, I'm going to put together a bonus extravaganza app. I got to bring Benny Howard back in. He's 20-3, another cracking call in his prelims tip. 20-3 on his bets this season. So let's hear how Benny likes it. Get cameo tips from all our favourite friends. We'll bring Nicole in on the Thursday show. He did hit 34-1 last week. I'm going to come up with an exclusive market. I'm going to tie the grand final into the NRLW. And I gave a little bonus value on my Friday show where I responded to the Kevy Walters news. I want to get your thoughts on that at the end of this show too. I said that the Roosters were my favourite team in the NRLW. They were $3 then. They're now $1.33 after the prelim results. And in fact, both sides I said I liked with regards to the spread did cover the line. Save all that for Thursday. So sorry, that was a tease from Clarkey. But should we get into try scorer? There's one man that I've really got my eye on, and that is Jerome Luai.
You do?
Just messing with you, mate. Just messing with you. Sorry. Since you said there's no way we'll have the same player. Sorry, I spoiled who Clarkey might like. I am going Xavier Coates. Coates scored. Do we agree that was the greatest finish of all time this year? I think when you throw in the context of the game and the comeback and that it's the final play of the game and it's to win the game, Coates has been out a little bit this year but got enough of a runway to get back in, is one of the elite wingers in the competition. I go back to that aerial contest against To'o. Could easily see Xavier skying for a try. And the Storm have to set up to get opportunities to go to that matchup in the air. But Xavier could just as easily score up a backline shift, or Cam Munster makes a line break. Xavier's there in support. So he's my try scorer. Take it away with yours.
Mate, you've already spoiled mine. So let me reveal with no great surprise who I'm choosing. And that is Jerome Luai. Look, I like Jerome Luai in this game because it'll be his final game as a Panther. So I think whilst he's already an elite player, there's just a little bit of extra fuel in his tank, if you will, there. And I also think he's that sort of unorthodox player that can score unexpectedly. Now, I can see him scoring in this contest realistically one of 3 ways. Number one is running himself with a dummy because he will have key players outside him. It could be one of the Storm players biting on that dummy. Number 2 is backing up in support. Is someone like Cleary, a centre, someone was to make a break, maybe Dylan Edwards. I could see him backing up in support. He does have enough speed there. And number 3, and this is probably my most likely way I see him scoring, is off a kick. Now, the defense will be expecting him to be sliding off Nathan Cleary and shifting that ball out to their outside players. But we might get a call from Nathan Cleary and Luai where he says, I'm kicking. And so when the defense starts to slide, anticipating Luai's going that way, he'll go straight through that line and dive on a kick through for Cleary. So I can picture 3 ways he scores in my head. So that's why I like him there. I can see him being highly motivated for this game. Not only his final game, but he was the one injured in the grand final last year. And he didn't play his best game. In fact, people look at that grand final and say, when he went off and Jack Cogger came on, that's when the game shifted. And they're not really wrong to think that way. Now, this is Nathan Cleary's injured grand final. And Luai, the roles are reversed here. So I predict Jerome Luai will have a really special game. And that leads me to Clarkey's collect winning. If we can bring that up on screen now through top
I'll just respond to what you said about Luai, because I can definitely see, a team runs it on 5th when you're expecting kick, and that could be the game-winning try. But the other way that you break a defense that's really hard to breach is the kick before the last. And if there's 2 players in the competition that can read what the other's thinking, as well as anyone, it's Jerome and Nathan that have played together, through many ages and grades for probably a decade plus. And the Cleary to Luai, Grubber in behind, when they just read each other's mind, is something that Melbourne's going to have to be high alert for. I don't have a graphic or anything, but that market is up now. I might get you to even type it up in the comments, and I'll put that on the screen. Shall we roll into? We obviously want to just let people know Clarkey's collect, but we can do Clive Churchill as well. I can do that while you type it up. And I've had a good run of Clive Churchill picks. I picked Nathan Cleary in 2021 against Souths. I then gave you Dylan Edwards in 2022 against the Eels. Then I was back on Nathan in 2023. And for Sunday, I am going Harry Grant at $11. He is $11 on Dabble. I've bet it there. You can copy me. On Toppy, he's also 11, and I think Ladbrokes as well. And I think Harry Grant is the best 9 in the comp right now. As much as I rate the game of Coruscant, his club just finished last. Grant's finished first. Grant is the captain. There's a narrative here that this is the first Storm grand final without Cam Smith. If you can believe this one, the career that Smith has, it's actually bizarre to say this. That was an award that eluded Cam Smith, never won a Clive. But you know that the Storm will lean on Harry Grant. And if this match plays out the way I envision, of a tight, low-scoring style, maybe Harry Grant can score a try or an assist when there's an opportunity jumping out of marker, but it's also just the workload that Grant will get through. And stopping those Panthers middles is also part of the job of the opponent hooker. And so I think, and being the captain of this side as well, that's my favourite play. You know what? Luai would not be a bad flyer if I was going Panthers for some of the reasons that you outlined for him to score a try as well.
Yeah, and so just to go back to Luai there real quick, man, I've typed that up in the comments, guys. So on Top Sport, go Rugby League Markets, Clarkey's collect same game multi. So I'm tying together what I said of Panthers 1-12 in a close one with Luai to score after 20 minutes. Because I feel like that first 20 is really just going to be the arm wrestle, and then we'll get into the unorthodox plays being required to score. So we get $21 there with a max bet of $25 on Top Sport. Onto my Clive Churchill medal predictions. When you look, I hate to be boring.
One more word as well on your Clarkey's collect. The reason I knew Clarkey was picking Luai was because Clarkey sent this to me to negotiate with Toppy to make sure we get a cracking price on that same game multi, which I can assure people we have. So I'd back that sooner rather than later, because 25 max stake, but that's at $21 odds. That's to win $500. And with the success Clarkey's had on Clarkey's collect, including in big games, obviously a fair few people will be jumping on that particular combination.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hopefully we can get that one up. It was awesome when the Origin Clarkey's collects hits, except for the part where I forgot to bet on it myself. And as soon as it scored, I was checking my bets. I'm like, where is it? And I was like, oh my God. But those are sacrifices you make when you're frantic trying to get here for the live show. Onto my Clive Churchill medal predictions, mate. Look, I hate to be boring. I was at the preliminary final against the Sharks, and my friend said to me, who do you reckon will be the best player on ground today? I reckon Liam Martin will have a huge game. And I said, dude, I don't want to be boring, but Nathan Cleary will be the MVP here. I've got the same mindset here. If Panthers win, you don't expect he'll play an important role. You know he'll play an important role. It's really that simple. The riskiest part about betting on Nathan Cleary, Clive Churchill medal, is his shoulder injury. Not that he won't show up or that his form wouldn't be good enough. He's a superstar. It's as simple as that. I don't need to break it down too much further. But I did want to offer an underdog pick, because not everyone likes getting on the favorite. Sometimes we like to see an underdog win. And I went James Fisher-Harris, man. Final game as a Panther also. I don't want to harp on that point too much. But I said in my key to victory, the forwards need to dominate and really own that middle third. And then we go back to the Sharks game last week. As soon as he came on with Lyoto for his final stint, he was massive and he secured the game for Penrith. So I can see a world where James Fisher-Harris really dominates the start with a big stint. And then he comes back on for his final stint ever as a Panther and has a huge impact on this contest. Let's say it's deadlocked and an arm wrestle, and Fish and Lyoto come back on. I could see Fish getting this game back in the favor of the Panthers. So I have bet on that myself as well. On Top Sport, he's paying $32, man. So that's an underdog pick. But Fisher-Harris is my smoky / underdog pick for Clive Churchill. Do you have a underdog or smoky that you're eyeing off?
No, not so much. I'll be perfectly happy if I can get $11. But I like your thinking there with Leo. Sorry, Ryan has commented Leota at 100 to 1.
Wow.
He says wrong prop Clarkey, but Fisher Harris has that storyline as well. Like he is the leader of this pack, probably alongside Yo, and going to New Zealand as well. A prop certainly can win man of the match. In a grand final. Go back to. Fafita was best on ground in 2016. Warrior Hargraves was best on ground for the Roosters in 2018. So apparently people got their wires crossed and told him he'd won it, but that was the one year or rare year where a losing player in white got it. And the style of game, again, that could be crucial. I suppose a real out-of-the-box pick would be, if you think Melbourne, you pick a Storm middle, the logical ones being King or Liero, if they can counteract the Panthers, and just get through a mountain of work in a low-scoring game where none of the outside backs or playmakers have as many highlight reel plays or stats. Then you've got to give it to someone in the engine room.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea for a post I might look to do on my page. I might break it down, Clive Churchill percentages between spine, outside backs and forwards throughout history, or maybe even per position, because it would be interesting to know that because like you said, it is a bit rarer for a forward to win, but I think this will be a rare contest. That's why I'm willing to take it at larger odds. I just don't see this as a game where, we get to 80 minutes and there's a clear winner. Let's say the Storm win by 10. I just see this as an all-time classic. And I hope that's not me being like a glass half full guy and being too optimistic. But I really think, especially with the AFL grand final being, let's face it, a touch boring this year due to the blowout. Yeah, it wasn't very entertaining. I don't watch AFL enough to comment, from any sort of serious lens. Just from an entertainment lens, didn't enjoy it. And I think rugby league's got a huge chance here. So I reckon this will be a very special game, mate. We'll recap everything in just a moment, but you did say at the start you wanted to discuss some of the happenings in the NRL right now. Did you want to go into that now?
I was just going through all the Clive Churchill medals in my head too, and I stumped at 2011. Someone let me know who won it for Manly that year, but 2014, Sam Burgess, there's another middle forward for you. He may have wore 13 at the time, but had a very similar role to a prop as well. So who got it for Manly in 2011? Let us know in the comments, guys. But that'd be a great post to break down by position who can win that award. We've pretty much done the game, guys. So I thought I'd just save some bonus nuggets at the end. Give us your thoughts on Maguire, mate, because you were still on holiday when the Kevy news broke, and now it's out today officially that Maguire's been appointed. And I did a breakdown show about half an hour Friday and all the reasons and information behind it that basically said why all roads point to Maguire, and my speculation on whether or not I think that'll work. So go back to that show for my breakdown. I'd love to hear just your quick reaction to it.
Yeah, quick 2-minute reaction for me. So I wasn't actually on holiday when this broke. I was back in Sydney. I was at the New South Wales Rugby League Grand Final, and I was typing this news on my laptop when guess who was within 10 meters of me while I was typing it? The man himself, because he was still the Blues coach at that stage. So I was like, hopefully Madge doesn't see my laptop screen. Look, I was going to go up for the Danny Widler exclusive, but I let him be. Let him enjoy his day. 3 things for me, I suppose. Number 1, is he the best fit coach for the Broncos? No, because the old boys are a big part of the Broncos culture, and they're not going to buy into a Blues coach, and particularly one of their favorites in Kevin Walters being removed. But is he the best available coach right now? Absolutely. Absolutely is. And when you look at this Broncos side, are they missing talent? Do they need a rebuild? Do they need a tactical coach? Not really. They just need a coach that's able to get up there. They're young and immature in terms of the game of rugby league experience-wise. They need a coach that can get them mentally up and ready. Madge can do that. He even did a better job at the Tigers than those that have taken over from him since. Number 2, Kevin Walters. Where to for him? Well, apparently they did the review via QR code, so the players could freely and anonymously speak about the coach. And an assistant coach that was the strength and conditioning for the Broncos previously, he came out a few months ago and he said, it's Kevy's way or the highway. He does not react well to criticism. And reports in the Career Mail actually suggest that he didn't agree with the review and he didn't agree with the players. And he said, that's rubbish and stuff like that. So he couldn't have stayed. You can't have all your players seemingly saying, hey, we need to change, but we're not going to get it. And keeping Kevin Walters there, he had to go. And I guess my final point for Michael Maguire, he deserves to be back as a head coach. This is a guy that was removed from the Tigers, and we've seen the Tigers since, no fault of his own, gone on to record a record-breaking victory over the Kangaroos, 30-0. First time in 30 years a team held them to 0 and win the Pacific Championship, and then win the State of Origin whilst missing his key player in Nathan Cleary that he would have loved to have had. So I do think Michael Maguire's ready to return, man. With this news, I probably wasn't going to tip the Broncos to be top 8 next year, but I will now. I will say they're a final side again under Michael Maguire, in my opinion, provided the players all buy into what he put in place there.
And the thing is, because of Madge's kind of radical and hard-nosed coaching style, the pressure is going to be on like any coach. And Madge doesn't have to come in and win the comp first year. But if Brisbane misses the finals, I know Madge signed a 3-year deal today. If Brisbane misses the finals next year, he's going to be absolutely on the hot seat. And if Madge doesn't kind of get him to a grand final within his first couple of years, I don't know whether Madge's style will work on this new generation of players. But I think everyone will tolerate that disciplinarian style if you're winning. But if you're not winning and you're getting flogged, then it could also implode. So it's going to be one of two extremes. It's either going to be a great success and is going to lead Brisbane to the promised land, or it could be a disaster. And if Brisbane goes on a losing streak and then you get to Origin and players are out of the side, and then do you back them up or not because you're trying to get short-term wins, or Madge isn't going to have that great support because you said the power brokers, the old boys around the club, they're not going to really have Madge's back. The fans are probably in two minds because he is the Blues coach. So it's going to be a fascinating story. And one other wrinkle that I didn't mention on Friday, but Ben Taylor is already signed as assistant coach. He is the player that clashed with Madge when Madge was pushing the South Sydney playing group too hard and basically stood up to him and spat the dummy and said, "This is ridiculous. You're flogging us too hard," and has openly talked about how he doesn't believe in kind of like army-style camps and borderline torture of players. And now he's the assistant coach. Or I haven't heard if those, if Trent Barrett and Taylor remain. I just find that a fascinating dynamic as well. Can I get your thoughts or anything you got for NRLW? Because I know you watched your Titans closely this year. They haven't made a repeat run to the grand final, but state championship too, because you were at the New South Wales Rugby League GF on Sunday at Combank.
Yeah, I think for the NRLW, look, I saw the Broncos here. I saw a Broncos versus Knights final, if I'm absolutely honest. So I got both of the semi-finals wrong there. Sharks snapped a 3-game losing streak in Brisbane against a side that beat them 3 weeks ago in Brisbane. So something happened there. Something clicked. Something was amiss for the Broncos. I don't know. But I have to feel that was the Sharks' miracle win. I probably can't see them repeating that. Whereas you look at a side like the Roosters, they faced adversity before the season even kicked off, losing their fullback Corbin Baxter to an ACL injury. They recalled a player out of retirement to replace her. Taryn Aiken returned last round. She was in some doubt. Now that we know she'll be there again, I hate to say it, but I see the Roosters winning here, probably 13 plus if I'm absolutely honest. They're just a touch of, they're a class above the Sharks. Maybe not when you look whole NRLW season, but, the Sharks have lost 4 of their last 5, I believe now, or at least 3 of their last 5, with the only win being a finals game. That was an unexpected win. So I've got Roosters 13 plus, man.
And Roosters are the 8.5-point favourites. And even earlier than that, the Newtown Jets, who got a win over North Sydney, will play North's Devils from the Queensland Cup, who beat the Redcliffe Dolphins. The New South Wales Cup champion Jets are 12.5-point favourites. You got any read? I know you watched at least both grand finals.
Yeah, I did watch both grand finals. I think for the Jets, that was a really back and forth game with the Bears, and the Bears are a quality side that have been in the last 2 grand finals in a row. They've actually lost those by 4 points and 6 points this year. Super unlucky for Bears fans, but Jets were impressive in that game. Why I'm always hesitant to bet on this game is because Queensland Cup is 1 week earlier. Those boys have all been on the drink partying. Some of them already signed with NRL teams or new teams and, are starting to look in that direction. Now, last year I did bet on the Rabbitohs because I knew that Corey Thompson was getting married. He'd always planned the wedding the week after the grand final, or the week after the season, rather. So there was a key player gone for the East Tigers. So I was like, cool, Rabbitohs it is. And they won easily enough with Munro getting a hat trick there. This year, I don't know. I don't feel like the Jets should be $1.20 based on what I saw in the grand final. North Devils are still a great side, man. But I would prefer the Jets. I hate to play it safe with such a short price there, but I would prefer the Jets in that one. Maybe just not by a 13+ margin, I think.
I will look even closer at those games and share that into the Thursday preview. I've got to leave people wanting a little more, but I promised a little funny punting story. Glenn Stewart was the answer to the question I posed, who got the Clive Churchill. So another forward. Would Glenn Stewart would have been wearing 13 probably in the 2011 grand final as well. So, another middle forward getting it there for Manly. And that ties into my story. 2008, Melbourne was in that grand final as well. Although this was a tainted Melbourne team. But I went to have a punt. I would have been 18, 19 years old, and I was as square a punter as anyone when I was younger too. Who do you think I backed in the Storm Seagulls grand final in 2008? I took the defending premiers, the Melbourne Storm. They had the more of the big name players to me. Cam Smith suspended. That's all right. They've still got a bunch of other good players. They won't miss Smith too much. Melbourne went the long way around the finals and had to play it absolute to the wire. I think a game in Brisbane to get in there. Manly was beaten by Melbourne the year before and had the easier pass through the finals, had the week off. I had a pretty big bet at the time. I had $100 on the Melbourne Storm. The thing is, back then you go into the tab and you got to scratch out your bet on a paper ticket and feed it into the machine. So, I got one number wrong. Next thing you know, I've got $100 on Manly, not Melbourne. And I've walked out, not realised till I'm in my car, and I thought, I don't even know. Can I go back in and try and get this cancelled? Can I change it? That's kind of embarrassing. Guess I'm supporting Manly then. And Manly won 40-0. And I remember bragging to Alex at the time. He said, I thought you liked Melbourne. And I said, I got the ticket wrong. He said, well, you can't brag about that. But hey, you make your own luck. So fond memories for me. Can't see this weekend being 40-0, mate. But that's the reason why I'm so excited for this. So you just get to see the pinnacle of the game, the two best teams, and just going toe-to-toe. So I can't wait. And in fact, we're going to give you a double dose of preview, as I said, with the try scorers, Benny Howard. Someone asked before, what's Benny's best bet? So we'll get that on Thursday. Exclusive markets, a little bit more NRLW State Championship, cameo tips. That's why we need to have a bonus ep Thursday night. So I'll see you then for those who tune in. But for yourself, Clarkey, mate, this is about 30 straight previews we've done together this year. And been a pleasure in each and every one of them. So thanks for all your efforts, including tonight, mate, and hope you enjoy the big one.
Mate, absolutely appreciate you. It's been another great year, and thank you very much to our listeners that have been with us tonight and throughout the season. Another great TryPod year. And just really, really appreciative of what you've built here and allowed me to come into, mate. So thank you to yourself and the community one last time.
It's come around way too fast, but enjoy your grand final week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know in the comments what you make of my best bet, which is the same gamer, Clarkey's Collect, our Clive Churchill picks. Share your own, what you're loving in this game. As always, we can chop it up. And we'll see you Thursday. I'm going to do a live recap within minutes of full time as well for an instant reaction, no matter what the result. So you can, check that out on your phone or whatever, even while the medal ceremony is going on, we'll be already reacting to it. So see you then if you're someone that gets around our recap show. But in any case, have a fantastic week. Best of luck if you're having a punt, and Lego.